meta movie about movie making, but not just movie making, the making of like this artifact, this thing. How do you think of it now? What is your relationship now, Greg, to The Room?
Well, when it first came out, I was mortified. But at this point, like, I've really made peace with it, because anything that has stuck around for 15 years has got to have done something right. And, you know, it's so hard to make films and get them out there, and the fact that this one's still screening, it's just, you know, something. I mean, I don't watch the movie, but it's something to be proud of, and I've learned so much from it. So I've definitely made peace with it.
Now, I really want to get into the process of adapting Greg's book into what the script that then formed what we just saw. So, Scott and Michael, tell us about your relationships to The Room.
We had never seen it, actually, when this started for us. We had seen the billboard in LA, visiting from the East Coast, and we both thought, what the hell is that thing? It looked like an off Broadway play, or a costume store, or movie posters don't have a phone number. It was so strange. But we still didn't watch the movie. James Franco sent us the book. So that for us was the first thing. Scott stopped maybe 3 chapters into the book to watch the movie, and you made the mistake of watching the movie by yourself.
There's many ways to watch The Room. None of them are a mistake.
Well, watching it alone, you kind of need a group of people so you could turn to someone and ask, is this happening? What's happening? I'm confused and afraid. And what's happening? Ari Grainer in the movie describes it as an ayahuasca trip. You need someone who's done it before to take you on the journey and tell you it's going to be okay. I waited until we did not tell James Franco this, but by design, Scott and I talked about this. I waited until after we had written the first draft to watch the movie, because by design for Scott and I, the thing that we were most attracted to was not the inside baseball of how this movie got made. That stuff was fun, but at the heart of this was a story about a friendship, and a friendship in which the bond is 2 guys who believe in each other when no one else does. And it wasn't that long ago Scott and I were outsiders. We still feel like outsiders most of the time. Kind of desperate to make a movie. So
Playing
for us,
football in the park.
yeah, exactly. That was really the heart of it for us. So.
Yeah. No, I think, and your book is so terrific. It's organized as like, all the odd chapters are about your friendship and your life, and all the even chapters are about the craziness of production. And we didn't believe that a movie about the making of The Room was ever going to actually get made. Not enough people know about that thing, but we really loved this story, and we thought, you know, if you just take the odd chapters and you write a screenplay about this friendship, where the whole engine is like, are these 2 guys that we love and want to follow, are they going to survive this experience? Is their friendship going to make it through this insanity? And then you can kind of cherry pick from the even chapters of the book the best stuff about the making of the movie.
Well, I think it's no accident that Franco and Rogan, producers of this film, came to you two. You guys didn't know them beforehand.
We'd never met them, yeah.
But
And
your
we're not funny.
filmography...
And we're not funny, so it was like,
Clearly not funny. But their previous movies are romances. 500 Days of Summer, The Fault in Our Stars. Beautiful, dramatic romances. And I really see that come through when I watch The Disaster Artist. How much does that, like...
Well, we Scott and I do our own little mini film festival before we embark on anything. And we were watching and talking about Ed Wood and Sunset Boulevard, Boogie Nights, The Talented Mr. Ripley, and we went in to meet with Franco and Rogan, having only read the book, not sure why they, sent the book to us, thinking, if we love Pineapple Express, but we're not the guys who could write
We're not funny. I can't stress this enough.
It takes us all day to write one joke. So, but the idea that like if they wanted to do sort of a hijinks on set movie for 2 hours, or even like a shot-for-shot remake all the way through, we're not the guys for that. I remember that meeting well because inside of 5 minutes, Franco was talking about Ed Wood and Boogie Nights, and we're like, okay, they see this sort of exactly the same way we do. So that's, I guess, why they came to us, that they kind of saw a interesting relationship dynamic, in this case, kind of a bromance at the heart of this.
Greg, bromance?
Definitely, the most unlikely bromance in history. That was one of the great things when I found out that Scott and Michael were adapting the book, is I really wanted this story to be taken seriously. And Ed Wood, Sunset Boulevard, those were some of my favorite movies that I really thought this relationship on screen, when you watch The Room, for those of you that haven't, I'm sorry in advance, there's so much more to these characters, and that's what I really wanted the story to tell.
Now, Greg, from your point of view, having 10 years after The Room came out, you put out this book. It's an incredible read, and I highly recommend it. But then giving over the power of your story and entrusting in James Franco, Seth Rogen, these two very funny guys. But to tell your story, what's that experience like?
It was incredible. I mean, James Franco wrote a review of the book in Vice that really hit everything that I wanted the story to tell. A universal story about following your dreams, being outsiders, this unlikely friendship, was exactly the story that I wanted to tell. And so when I found out that Scott and Michael were doing the screenplay, it was so exciting, because I've never anticipated reading anything more in my entire life. And it was just really cool to see what they would think of the story. And I knew it was in such good hands that instead of having any worry at all, I was just excited. Like, I just wanted to see how they would do it, because I was such a fan of their work. So it was really a great experience in that regard.
And Scott and Michael, you see in the film, you see these moments plucked right out of the book. You see conversations and lines that Greg wrote and remembered from his real life. How did you decide which of those moments to keep?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons we love doing adaptations is because we have to be fans first. And you read something and you flip for it and you're like, cool, this is amazing. Like, I want to make sure that people who haven't read the book, when they see the movie, they have the same kind of visceral response that we have when we read the book. And in this particular case, there's just so much great material. The hardest thing was figuring out what to use. And I think because he didn't actually watch the movie, anything I had to overly explain to him, we weren't going to use that. Some of the funniest stuff in the book is about certain things, certain choices Tommy made, and certain, Tommy shot everything with the 2 cameras, and we were able to kind of do that pretty easily. But there are other things that he did in the editing that are insane and so hilarious. The thing with the recording the conversation. He records at one point a conversation, and we watch him do it, and we see the conversation, and then later he plays it back, and it's a totally different conversation, and it's insane. And that's how it was in the script, which is amazing. And so we couldn't use a lot of that stuff because it would require too much over-explanation, and anytime you try to over-explain, it's boring. And so I think that was definitely the only real challenge that we had from adapting such a good piece of material.
The interesting thing was, when we wrote the script, just as a template, we wrote these testimonials in the beginning, like you saw. And we used people we had heard or read about who were fans of The Room. And because of the relationships James Franco and Seth Rogen have, they were able to go and get a lot of those people and more. J.J. Abrams, really cool people there. Their words were not scripted. Those are all real fans of The Room. But we had a test screening where those testimonials were not in the beginning of the film. And what was interesting was how many people thought we had made all of this up, that there wasn't actually a movie, The Room.
They thought it was like James Franco's Borat.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we needed real people telling you, no, this is a real thing, and we love this thing, to sort of give you the context right away. And even then, a lot of people sort of forget about those testimonials until you see the real Tommy and the real Greg at the end, and it's like, oh yeah, these are real guys, and this really happened. This movie exists.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite moments was, I think, in the last year, was meeting you, Greg, and Tommy together at Toronto, at the Toronto Film Festival, and seeing, oh my god, like, it's so surreal from a room fan's point of view. But then, yeah, like, you're a real person. This is a real story. What's it like for you to now, like, see the film, and what parts of it really bring you back the most?
It's really therapeutic to watch. I've seen the movie like 8 times now.
And you were on set a decent amount.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was really therapeutic. I go to the set, and there were, on this particular day, we were filming at Cantor's Deli, where Tommy first showed me the screenplay, and where we would hang out all the time. And they were sitting at the same booth, eating the same food, and it was just, it was a great release. I felt like it was all worth it to have survived the story and to tell it, and then to finally have a film or be a part of a project, and to have gotten to work with people that I really look up to and have a film that I'm proud of. I feel like that's just such a great reward.
Scott and Michael, were you, I should say, how worried were you before Tommy saw the movie for the first time?
I imagine that when you showed him the book the first time, it was a lot more stressful.
Yeah, he started screaming, and he's like, "For your information, I did not dye my hair when we shoot the room." And I was like, "That's the only thing you took away from it?" And it came in waves after that. Like a month later, he would be upset about one thing, but ultimately, he said he likes the book 40%, and I think that part is the friendship, because he knows that I honored the friendship, and that's, those memories I really cherish. So he loved that part, but he still thinks The Room is the greatest movie ever made. So that was a little bit rough.
He got mad at me a couple weeks ago. We were doing the DVD commentary, and I asked you, Greg. I said, so when Tommy first handed you the script, what did you think? Were you worried? Is this a bad movie? Is this a good movie? I didn't even get to finish the question, and Tommy was like, why do you say bad movie? What? See, you're the problem, Mr. Nosy Hollywood guy. So it is like a trigger for him if you even hint that The Room is anything less than a masterpiece.
Yeah, so when he did see the film, it was at South by Southwest, and I had the honor of sitting next to him, because I had seen the film and I loved it, and I knew that, I felt like he would like it, because it's performance by James is incredible, the movie's great. So he was sitting next to me with sunglasses on, and I knew everybody was watching, wondering what is he going to think, and so he didn't say too much, and then as soon as James started throwing the football in the park, he leaned over to me and whispered, "Exaggeration." And then he was quiet for a while, and then in the really tense moments, he started bursting out with laughter, like uncontrollably, like I was like, okay. And then afterwards, we just said, yeah, I approve 99.9%.
I actually find Tommy like a rather sweet guy now that we've got to spend more time and get to know him a little bit. And what was really interesting was he saw the film for the second time at the Toronto Film Festival. And I don't know if you noticed this, Greg, but like when you guys are making The Room, and right around when Tommy's behavior goes from like mildly erratic to a little irrational and overbearing, real Tommy got up and left the theater for about 20-something minutes, 25 minutes. He didn't come back till after the fight in the park. And part of me, maybe it's the writer in me, but it's almost like Tommy couldn't bear to watch again sort of how he treated you and everyone on set. It was easier to sort of not watch that part of it.
Yeah, he was whispering to me like, I have to go, I have to go for bathroom. I was like, no, don't leave in the movie. It's rude because people are like watching the screen, and then the guy gets up and just starts walking. He's like, no, I have to go.
But the timing was unbelievable.
Yeah, and he literally left on cue, and then he was gone for a really long time. So I think he was just tired, maybe.
It takes a while to take all the belts off.
always, right? Tell me about the crafting of that parallel scene in the film when we get to the premiere of The Room. That's a huge emotional moment. It's, I think, a moment when the audience has to reckon with ourselves as well as to how we have been viewing Tommy and how we will view Tommy from this point on. When he hears the laughter in the theater, and tell me about crafting that scene.
Yeah, there's parallel stories being told in that scene. There's the story of everybody watching this for the first time. The audience, our audience, you guys, hasn't seen a lot of that put together, so it's our audience getting to see that. But what's really happening is the sort of arcs of this friendship are being told in this one kind of big moment. Greg shows up not wanting to be there. They're not friends. They sit there, they start watching this movie, it doesn't go exactly as they expect it to, and Greg starts to notice that Tommy, his former friend, is feeling this, he's becoming a human. He's having a visceral reaction to this thing that nobody could have anticipated, or certainly he could not have anticipated. And it's up to Greg to be a friend in this moment, or to choose whether he wants to be a friend in this moment or not. And I think the fact that he chooses to lends itself to that kind of winning, kind of almost Rocky-esque feeling at the end, where you're just, it doesn't really matter how the room comes out. They're back as friends, and that's what we've been kind of hoping would happen the whole time. So that's what we were trying to craft in that. I don't know if it worked or it didn't, but we tried.
Oh, by the way, we will take audience questions, so if you have a question, get your hand ready, and we'll take several of them. I'm sure everybody has many questions. I sure did. So, yeah, I mean, that's honestly one of my favorite scenes. The recreations at the end are also all of my favorite scenes. What's it like for you, Greg, to see the like dedication that, like, the first time that you saw the recreations, to see how much this cast really studied The Room and how much the very talented DP recreated the lighting of The Room.
That's what he said was the hardest part, was finding how you could light something so poorly. It's harder than doing it right. The first time I went to set was when they were shooting all the Room recreation scenes, and Michael was showing me some of the scenes. I was like, I thought I was watching The Room. Like, it was, I don't know how they found that wardrobe. Like, that's one of the things I think of when I watch the movie again. It's like they got all those pieces, that weird shirt that Lisa wears, like the necklace, like my terrible blue button-down shirt. Like, the dedication that went into this film was amazing. Like, anytime I would show up on set, I've never seen anybody, group of people making a movie so happy and working so hard that it was contagious. And it's so cool that something like The Room brought about this kind of passion.
We recreated about a third of The Room. And we didn't need that much. Obviously, you need some of it in the premiere that's playing up on the screen so you understand what the audience is responding to. But shooting those recreations, those were our favorite things to do. And we would break out all these iPads in a circle, the actors, James, all of us, and sort of watch the scenes just on a loop to kind of get everything down. Department heads, to make sure wardrobe, lighting. And I have to say that we only budgeted and scheduled time for just a few of those, but Franco, as a director, was so focused, he was so prepared, we were making our days, we were ahead of schedule, we were under budget, that we had the time and resources to actually shoot that many more recreations that you see at the end there, because that wasn't initially planned for. That's all a credit to Franco being so on top of things as a director.
Well, I also think that whenever you talk to filmmakers, or there are several comedians in this film, for example, and Paul Scheer, who is in this, has spoken about The Room. He's on his podcast, several, I think 2 times, 2 different podcasts. So there's this huge following, and it's so authentic and so genuine within the filmmaking world that it's no surprise to me that people care. Like, on set, your cast cared to get everything right, and also knew in their heart of hearts every single angle and every single like movement that happened. How do you feel about that aspect of it? The fact that so many artists, I think, just instantly can relate to what movie Tommy and movie Greg and everybody involved are going through.
We certainly did. We always kind of think of ourselves as people trying to break it into the movie business.
Still?
Yeah. And so whenever we write anything, and especially screenwriters who don't direct, you never know if they're going to make the thing that you work on. And so for us, that dream is still kind of front and center all the time. And we didn't look at it as let's punch down or let's have fun with these real people. It was more like we are them. How do we tell the story in like the most kind of truthful way?
And do we have any questions from the audience? Yeah, let's get to these. Right here in the front row, sir.
Start off. Greg, what does your mother think of it now?
That's what I had.
Did everybody hear that? The question was, I will repeat it. Greg, what does your mother think of it now?
Well, it's proof that parents don't always know best, because my mom initially was horrified of Tommy. In fact, in real life, she actually said to him, "No sex." So she was really concerned about me going with Tommy, and now she's a huge fan. I mean, she thinks Tommy's great. She thinks he's got a heroic quality to him. She even tells me now, be more like Tommy. So I have to say that she's pretty happy.
And if anybody doesn't know, Tommy, after The Room, monetized The Room and monetized this cult movie phenomenon. He informed me when I met him that you can buy several Tommy Wiseau originals on TommyWiseau.com. Shout out Tommy Wiseau.
He also sells Tommy Wiseau underwear on the website.
They look very supportive. Question right here in the middle.
Okay, the secret scene at the end of the movie where Tommy finally meets Tommy. Can you tell us about the shooting, and was that scene contractually required?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the scene at the very end after the credits, Tommy negotiated his own contract, and one of the things he negotiated was a scene in the film opposite James Franco, which was sort of complicated to figure out where would you have two guys who look like that. But he forgot to negotiate initially that we had to put the scene in the movie. He only negotiated we had to shoot it.
I was the one behind that.
Oh, really?
So apparently you guys had a limited window of being available. We had a week to get him on board, and that was his request. So the agent we were working with said, no way in hell would ever ask for such a thing. It's embarrassing. And then I think I asked Vince, he's like, sure, we just won't put it in the final cut. I was like, yeah. And Tommy ended up agreeing, saying he'll do it, but he didn't think of that. And I made sure not to bring that up to him.
That was the only day, good job. That was the only day Tommy was on set, too. He was not on set otherwise.
We had a great sort of situation where we cut it from the movie, but you get a job doing Puppet Master, and you go to Romania to film it. We were like, aha, Romania. We could do the Tommy scene. He could be on the set in Romania, and he could have that accent, and it would be great. And Wiseau was like, don't even try that Romanian shit. I wanted a scene with James Franco, not Dave Franco.
And we scripted a little couplet or two in a party scene. The same scene where Dave Franco, you see him with his friend, what's his name? Who plays the friend? Gerard Carmichael. That was going to be a party scene that Tommy was also at, and Tommy, being a bit of a wallflower, was hanging in the back. And real Tommy goes over to talk to him. And we realized, well, if the scene doesn't work out, we can kind of just lift it out easily, which is what happened. And then I guess they thought, I don't remember who came up with it, whether it might have been New Line, but someone had the idea it would be fun to see that scene and put it all the way at the end. Scott and I will probably never get to write a Marvel movie, but this is the closest we'll come to having like a superhero post-credit pop. Just you know, a little hint at the larger Tommy Wiseau cinematic universe.
It's setting up the second movie. Let's do that.
P.S. There is a Tommy Wiseau and Greg Sestero cinematic universe.
Yeah,
if
you
you
guys have another
consider
movie.
The Room, followed by The Disaster Artist, followed by a movie called Best Friends, which I had the pleasure of watching. Greg, tell us about that.
Yeah, so I never thought I would work with Tommy again, for many reasons. But when I saw a cut of The Disaster Artist early on, I was really moved by it, and it really helped me see the friendship in a different way. It actually made me appreciate the friendship, believe it or not. And I just realized that Tommy was very, very misunderstood, and I'd been trying to get away from Tommy. Being his translator could be a little difficult and tiring, but I realized all he's ever wanted is to be taken seriously as an actor. And no one's really ever given him that chance. And I thought, all these years later, it'd be interesting to actually try to make a film, take Tommy seriously, and see what would happen. And so, because I'm partly insane, I took that risk and took that journey, and we made something which is insane.
What's the latest with that film?
It's supposed to come out a little bit later this year, hopefully at a festival or something.
It blew my mind, to be honest. It screened once in Los Angeles, and it's incredible. So anybody who's now, you know, in the Room multiverse, I highly recommend staying up on the watch for that. Yes, right here, please.
Is there a way to screen The Room or to see it?
Oh, is there a way? How can you see The Room? Great question.
You gotta order the DVD from theroommovie.com or Amazon.com.
But there's also screenings. If you go to Tommy's
Next week.
website,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
screenings all over the world, all the time.
There's a very
I live in
big
New
one on
York.
Friday.
Yeah, I live in New York. There's a monthly one in New York City, and like tons of NYU kids go all the time and throw spoons and all the rituals. In LA, there's screenings all the time.
Yeah, I think really seeing it in the theater would be the safest way to go, and I think it's screening on January 10th in theaters all around the country.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that might be your chance.
Nationwide. We have a question in the back? With the woman with the dark hair? That's you.
So, Tommy was obviously really invested in this project and an eccentric, unique person. So, how did you go about creating like the script and writing this book that were largely about him kind of becoming like super exploitative?
Yeah, well, really my goal with the book was to share really what I thought was a very unique and touching story that at the end of the day was inspiring. And I feel like when I had the idea to write the book, he was the first person I told, you know, and I interviewed him about, you know, who he was and why he wanted to make movies. And he talked about his times living in Paris and coming to New Orleans. And, you know, he was very much into me telling that story. And I felt like because I was there through it all, you know, I think Tommy's a very particular mind. He sees things a certain way, which is what the kind of the room is. And I was there, and I saw the story in a different way. And so I felt like it was a great chance for me to share a very human story about somebody who was very misunderstood and about a friendship that when we'd go out and you'd see us, people would stare like, what did you ever see in this guy? But it was a chance for me to really share, you know, how unique and great Tommy is behind the vampire exterior.
Now, Greg, your book is incredibly detailed, and I know there were a lot of items from the making of The Room that you had access to that maybe helped jog your memory or bring you back. What were some of the things when you went about writing the book that helped you get back into that mind frame?
Well, it was such an insane experience that I remembered so much of it, but I was lucky to have a lot of behind the scenes footage from the making of The Room that I was able to revisit and see those characters there. But really probably the most valuable thing that I had from that time was a couple of tapes that Tommy had recorded himself which he would keep an audio journal driving around LA and talking to himself in the early 90s. And I came across those tapes because throughout our friendship, I didn't realize it at the time, but Tommy was recording all of our phone conversations. And I found a box of tapes in his apartment that had labels on them with dates that said like Babyface, September 20th, 1998, Babyface, September 30th, 2000. And I was like, okay, these need to get destroyed immediately. Because we did have weird conversations about all kinds of things. So I figured, taken out of context, they'd be a little bit weird. So I destroyed those tapes, and then I found a tape that said Hollywood 1994 to 1995, and I listened to it, and it was Tommy driving around Hollywood talking about how he was misunderstood in these acting classes, and he had a power that people didn't see. And it was him talking to himself in a way that you would never hear. He would never tell you these stories. And so that was really great, because I got to know Tommy in a different way. And that is really what I kind of built his character on, was showing who Tommy was to the world in a way that maybe he wouldn't tell himself.
And guys, did that kind of detail, like items that Tommy had, or like the clothes that everybody's wearing, did those help you when you were creating your version?
We also had the tapes. At least the ones of him recording, talking to himself, and occasionally they still pop on my iTunes when I'm on shuffle, and I'm like, no, I can't. But they're really, some of them are like super painful and like honest, and we used a lot of like that whole rooftop of like, nobody liked me, no one understand me. It all comes from like legit stuff that, at one point when he was driving around the city by himself, he was thinking, and it was nice to be able to get into his head, and no, I wouldn't say nice. It was important to be able to get into his head to tell the story as accurately as we could. But obviously, also the source material is just the best.
And we have a question right down here.
What's the kind of the sub story about you and your girlfriend and eventually moving into her? Was that true? And if so, have you reconnected with that person with all this happening?
Yeah, it was true. So one of the things Tommy used to tell me was tell everybody that he's my cousin. So that's what I told my girlfriend, is that he was my cousin. And yeah, I mean, a big part of the room was why we broke up, because she thought, why would you ever do this movie? But I haven't spoken to her since. I did get a message from her about a couple months ago saying that she listened to the audiobook, and she thought it was ... interesting. So that's about as much communication as we've had.
This is Amber?
Yeah, this is Amber.
In the book, you also write that she's the one who convinced you to act in the room.
Yeah, so there was another Mark outside of me, and she didn't want me to do the room. Now, Tommy came up with a brilliant plan to get rid of the other Mark, because he wrote the role of Mark for me. So his idea of going on set the first day was to, he was shooting on 2 cameras, HD and 35mm film, was to say that I was going to be playing the role of Mark to audition for producers for later projects, and that they would roll film on me doing these scenes and digital on the actual Mark, but then just delete those scenes. So he'd shoot the whole movie with 2 Marks. It didn't really work out, but yeah, at the time when I told my girlfriend, that Amber, that this was his idea, she's like, yeah, why not? You're gonna be all day, you're gonna be there all day anyway. Just might as well do it. So yeah, I've heard a thing for that.
A question right here in the middle.
Greg, what happened with your career after you moved?
I needed some time off. The room came out in 2003. I did help Tommy for a few years after that. He would hand out postcards all over LA and just put it everywhere. Then he released a DVD in which I tried to help get it out there. And then I took a couple years off. I was living in Europe, doing like commercials and photo shoots and stuff. And then the room was totally off my radar. It wasn't until about 2008 that I got a call from Entertainment Weekly from a reporter who had just seen The Room in LA and said he never could have imagined that 30 people in a cinema throwing spoons at a screen on a Saturday night would be so much fun. And he wanted to write an article about it, and he told me that there were like celebrity fans, and the movie was being studied in universities, and it just totally blew my mind. I hadn't even thought of The Room in a couple of years. So then that kind of re-entered my life, and then it became all about trying to write something or be a part of something redeeming about the room.
We have a question over here on the aisle.
Me?
Yes, you.
It said at the end of the movie that you and Tommy talk every day. Do you still keep in touch with anyone else from the original movie?
Yeah, I think for the most part, everyone is blown away by the experience and what's come of it. You know, I've obviously talked most with Tommy since we talk almost every day. But yeah, everyone's cool. Everyone is taking the experience in stride and you know, appreciated it for what it is.
You said Tommy's into emojis?
Yeah, he's actually really clever with emojis. He'll send me these like elaborate texts with like footballs and smiley faces and all these different things. I was like, go Tommy.
Right here?
I'm trying to get a handle on now. What is his diagnosis?
There's probably a lot of things going on. I think people have seen the film that haven't seen the room wonder about the car accident. And I don't think it's that. I just think he's just very different. And he stayed true to being different. I don't know, I'm fascinated to know exactly what's going on.
I actually love that the film and Greg, you keep those mysteries at a respectful distance for Tommy, for us. You know, like people really ask Tommy thousands of times, where have you and he was on it to them, so either
I'm gonna go to the restroom.
Whatever they get. Down there.
the women will be in line.
The women are always right inside the door, and us guys gotta walk 26 miles.
If I want to go in here.
Might not be so good. It was really fun. So what was I saw Jesse the other day.
Yeah. So what's so it's over here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can we exit out this way? Yeah. Can we exit this way? Can we exit this way? It was shocking how nice he was. He came here a couple years ago, and
they showed a student film from USC where they did a version of Cyrano.
Oh.
And he really wanted it to be all about the kids, you know, and the work they did.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Enough fun.
Yeah.
Exactly know how to get here. When I'm done with this festival, I will.
Yeah, you should know it all.
Ray knows this town much better than I do. Okay. Directions. Camel. Theater. Oh, it's getting dark. Okay, 17 minutes. This is 8 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
I'm not gonna get anywhere but to turn the car on. So just so you're curious, I am not cheating on jury duty. I actually did get it postponed.
Ah, good. I figured as much.
Okay, it's not talking to me. No, I don't want the phone. Okay. I don't want to run over anywhere. Alright. Okay,
Start.
I'll go this way because it's kind of that way.
Let's see. Let's see where we're going. Okay, we need to get back to Keats.
To Keats. Doesn't to Keats... Weren't we on to Keats? This is to Keats, I think.
Come on, talk to me, baby.
I think this is to Keats, if I remember right.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Okay. I know how to get there.
Yeah. So here.
That's all I needed.
Okay. And then right on Sunrise.
Yeah. Yeah, I know how to get it. I know how to get it there from to Keats. Just getting out of the Annenberg.
Yeah. So why aren't you talking? I run into this problem with mine too. It's like,
it's been really behaving pretty good, but I told you it's been acted up lately.
yeah.
Okay, you're just gonna drive in. You know, yes, there is a bicycle law, but
Yeah.
did you see that?
Yeah.
You know what? There are a lot of drugs here. And it's definitely a good thing to stay away from any at night, any gay areas. I'm serious, like gay bars, because Because when they get, especially gay bars, or places where they can drink, because they get horrible fights, mean fights afterwards.
Oh.
They call each other bitch and it's like two girls on their period. It's like you don't want to be there. Okay, I want to go straight.
Yeah.
Or we could turn right.
Or not. There's a lot of people out.
Yep. Season. It's hard. Hope all their cars break down, so they need auto parts.
We don't have to hit. Oh, there we go. So let's not hit every red light.
Gotta get in the right lane. I think I'll sped up.
Jeez, come on.
Hello? That's why I have this. The traffic in this town.
Yeah.
Really bad. It's as bad as Hollywood, or I don't know, as bad as Hollywood because it's not as busy as Hollywood, but the LA-ish kind of bad, or even maybe Las Vegas.
Yeah, probably more Vegas.
Or more Vegas. Because Vegas, it's like, it seems normal, and the minute you start thinking it's normal, then something really crazy happens, and you are going, okay, did I just see that happen?
Well, then you got the pedestrians that you have, like here, that you have to deal with in Vegas.
Right, but mostly, during when I'm driving during the day, we don't see that many pedestrians. Only in, if you're in downtown.
Yeah.
But there's two components that make it dangerous.
Old
the
people.
Alcoholics.
Yeah, and the old people.
And the old people, yes. But I must say, I learned to drive in Leisure World.
Yeah.
Right? So I told my kids, I said, you know what? I know that there's a lot of old people here, but it's probably going to be one of the best lessons you've ever learned. Because I said, I learned to drive in Leisure World, and I'm so glad I did. Because, it really taught me a lot.
Do you know where you're going?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I know where the Camelot is.
Yeah, I think you know where that is.
Yeah. And when we go to the high school, when we're going to turn left into the Camelot. The high school to the right.
Oh, okay.
Okay. This. I used to not know where this was at all. And sometimes the GPS is wrong and it tells you to go down that street.
Oh.
And yes, you can get to the Camelot that way, but you can't see it.
Huh.
So, and it's a closed shopping mall at Camelot, so it's like, okay, where is this? I drove by it so many times. Finally, you had to drive in and ask someone how to get there. At the light.
Got a little bit of light already.
try the handicap?
No, there's not. I don't think there's going to be anything available up there. They don't have very much options.
Yeah.
This is not that far. And the nice thing about this, it's easy to get out.
Yeah.
So I usually park in this area. I usually park either in these spots or these spots. Thank you. We have our dinner.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, really good idea to bring it with us. No, I got it. So far. Cookie. $300 or what do you
Otherwise, be after the movie.
Yes.
That'd be true.
You don't want to like start eating and then have to go in.
I have enough time to carry all this, let alone a sandwich too.
I'll just put the bag here. Dinner pool. Think about it here.
What?
There's a little restaurant here.
Oh.
So count me. Yeah, sandwiches, soups, the pizza, something.
We did talk about, trying to go healthier and
Connect my keys.
Did you want to be focused on?
Yes, I know. It's an improvement. There.
Oh, sure, yeah. No, I have my sweatshirt in here. Couple of emojis as well. Do this a certain way. Because it will presently down. It's one thing related to our I think you suggested you do that. You want to we heard it. I was going to say, I don't know. We got to try. I know that I need to see the room. Stuff in or get it on the line. And I don't think we want to be on there. Full green spoons. And sure, where the spoons are. Right before you know. My question was there some other things? But there's some. No, I just meant for everybody that so I was concerned about someone not me not getting to I probably went into it, but that's okay. Oh, God, loved it. Everybody was my husband had to
Oh no, I'm not driving. Turn right. When will you be home?
Oh, poor baby.
See, Mommy was waiting on him yesterday, the day before. He's had a fever. This is his third day of his fever. There's nothing a doctor can do. But it hasn't been high. It's just been low grade the whole time. Taking Tylenol. And last night I had him take, a nurse taught me this trick that if you want to try to break a fever, to take Tylenol and Advil together. because they don't react against each other, and it was just she was a pediatrician when the kids were really little. So I said, the only Advil I had in the house was Advil PM. I had little sample packets because I'm not taking them anymore. And I said, do you want to rest? Do you want to take a nap? He goes, yeah, sure. And I said, take 2 Advil PM and 3 Tylenol.